afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Are we ready? Ready.
Eastern Visayas. Maayong hapon, maupay na kulop, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us in today's webinar on learning continuity of higher education in a flexible learning environment. I am Maria Mayla of Commission on Higher Education, Regional Office 8, and I will be one of your moderators and co-learners this afternoon. Two things before we proceed. First, I'd like to inform everyone that this webinar is being recorded. Second, I'd like to request everyone to please check his or her microphone and make sure that it is muted. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We now open this webinar with a prayer to be led by Ms. Erleta S. Pinheiro, Education Supervisor.
Let us pray. Most loving Father, we turn to you this time of deep global concern. We are frightened, God, worried for our loved ones, worried for our world, worried of an uncertain future.
We now open this webinar with a prayer to be led by Ms. Erleta S. Pinheiro, Education Supervisor.
Let us pray. Most loving Father, we turn to you this time of deep global concern. We are frightened, God, worried for our loved ones, worried for our world, worried of an uncertain future. Helpless and confused, we seek comfort, faith, and hope. Teach us, God, to turn our panic into patience and our fears into acts of kindness and support. In this season, we have been made uncomfortable. Our movements have been curtailed. We are inundated with often conflicting information. Our minds are racing, but we cling to your promise, Father God, to be with us always. We thank you, Father, that even in the midst of some of the hardest times of our lives, there can still be glorious, shining moments that help us find courage and connection, just like today. Even if colleagues, family, and friends have become images and voices on screens, we are hopeful that someday soon, like eagles, we will soar and not forever zoom. Almighty God, we with hope at this time of heightened global awareness of our mutual interdependence. Enable all of us to appreciate the strength that comes from being united in concern and love rather than divided with hate and prejudice. Help us choose love during this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other. May love, not fear, go viral. Send strength and courage to the doctors, nurses, and all healthcare professionals and key workers in the front line of this battle, who tirelessly seek to heal those affected, while in so doing put themselves at risk. Strengthen them, Lord, that they may bring strength. Keep them in health, that they may bring healing. Help them know again a time when they can breathe without fear. Bless the sacred works of their hands. Ease their and every family's fears. Sustain them. Grant public health and government officials the strength to act swiftly and decisively, with compassion and understanding, in service to humankind, fighting this outbreak and the other diseases that still plague the planet. Diseases threatening the lives of our brothers and sisters, nations and communities, young and old. Father God, bring an end to disease and suffering, so that all may know your compassion and your grace. Father, teach each one of us to do our part to halt the spread of this virus. Dear Lord, bless all teachers as they face uncertain days who must teach students in classrooms who are no longer physically in front of them. Help them ease their anxiety and anxiety of the students during this difficult time. We pray for all teachers who struggle with technology, who feel unprepared to teach, who need support to continue to learn, who worry about not being able to be effective with remote teaching and learning, who feel overwhelmed with flexible learning, who feel inadequate, who do not feel supported, who find it difficult to focus, who are worried about themselves, who are worried about their families, who must teach from home and care for their own children, who find day-to-day life at home a struggle, whose home life may not be safe, who care for older parents in their homes, who live in poverty, who live alone, who feel isolated, who need extra support, who miss their schools, who are concerned about the evolution of their students' learning, who worry about students who miss out on important things, who worry about students who do not have adequate resources, who feel the burdens their students face, who are sad, who are depressed, who are dealing with medical or health issues, who do not reach out for help, who do not know how to cope and feel helpless, who need rest. Lord, reveal to us new and creative ways to come together in spirit and in solidarity. Help us, God, to see that we are one world, one people who will rise above this pandemic together. Send us health, God, watch over us. Grace us with your love. Bless us with your healing light. Father, bless the higher education institutions in Eastern Visayas, the administrators, faculty, and staff. Bless the CHED Regional Office, enable them to continue to serve and actualize their respective mandates and mission, especially during these critical times in the educational landscape as we hand in hand transition to the new normal. Bless the resource speaker and the participants to this webinar on learning continuity of higher and flexible learning environment. Inspire us, Lord, to learn as one through this humble endeavor. Hear us, God. Heal us, God. Amen.
Amen. This afternoon's is conducted via three platforms, Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. We now have a total of 100 plus registered participants, and we are joined by our friends on Facebook and YouTube. Later during the open forum, we will gather the questions and comments from these three platforms. So please chat away or note down your questions. Now, to formally welcome you all to this webinar, I give you our Dynamic Regional Director, Dr. George M. Colorado Cecil Ruiz.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Barod, our resource person, our speaker, to the presidents of the various private HEIs, and maybe some representatives also from the SUCs if they are around. But this meeting is particularly directed towards the private HEI in our region. Am I heard clearly? So, okay ba?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because sometimes I do not know if I'm choppy or I'm chap or I'm chop suey, whatever. Now, this is the new normal that we are facing. But I think the immediate response that our private HEIs have given for this call for a meeting like this, a seminar, so that we can continue our preparations for the coming school year. I'm happy to note, first of all, that in our region, there are no higher education institution that is opting not to open. At this time, I have not heard of any school in our region that is opting to forego this school year because of the problem. It seems that all our schools are going to open this school year. So as we open, we must make sure that we have some guidelines to follow, and we have some technologies to implement and some know-how. And so we will have to help each other. One difficulty that we have is that this thing that we are facing is new. No one has gone through it. We have not gone through it. And we are fortunate that there are schools that have been doing this for quite some time already. They are doing online. They are doing learning management systems and implementing them in their schools. And so we will take advantage of this knowledge. That's why we organize this, especially for all of you in the private higher education institution. So we have today Dr. Barot, who has given us his time to be present so that he could give us some important things to know, things to prepare, and so that we will continue to improve our capability in these unknown areas at the moment. CHED is doing its job. I hope you have visited the Philippine CHED Connect. It's a portal where several state universities and colleges and even private higher education institutions have ported their LMS systems. And so they are lending it or sharing it for free. The UP Open University system said that all their systems online for online purposes will be volunteered, and it's there, it's available for everyone to benefit on. And so we also have to learn a lot of things. And so now this is our opportunity for you to take advantage, ask the questions, learn from our speaker, dissect his mind, try to get as much juice as you can from this expert. We are proud of him, and we are happy that he has given us this opportunity to be with us this afternoon. So I welcome you now to this meeting, and I thank you once again that you have responded to this call. Good afternoon to all of you, and let's continue to face the troubles that you are facing. I believe we will be successful. Good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, the transition to flexible learning is a challenge, but with sharing and with the Bayanihan spirit, we will avoid academic freeze as we work and learn as one. Now, in this season of webinars, it is indeed a feat to invite sought-after education experts. Just like what the director said, we are lucky that our speaker said yes to Region 8. May I now call on our supervising education program specialist, Dr. Gabino Pitios, to introduce our resource speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our speaker today is an author. Can you hear me? No. Okay. Sorry. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Our speaker today is an author, editor, trainer, researcher, and teacher by profession. He holds a PhD in applied linguistics and a master's in teaching English. He is currently full professor 3, the highest university rank, and the dean of the College of Education, Arts and Sciences at the National University, and an author and resident trainer for C&E Publishing. Prior to becoming the dean, he used to be the head of the research center of the National University, editor-in-chief of Rex Publishing, and a professor at some of the top universities in the Philippines. Recently, he has been cited as one of the top scientists in the Philippines, and one of the most productive researchers in the field of education and language and linguistics in the Philippines. He has also received 3 international awards, namely Award for International Participation at Teaching English to Speakers or TESOL by the prestigious TESOL International Association in Washington, USA. 2, Research Fellowship Award by the Southeast Asian Ministry of Education Regional English Language Center in Singapore. And 3, semifinalist of the prestigious National Academy of Education Spencer Postdoctoral Fellowship Award 2019 in the USA. He has been invited as a language and research consultant for various international and national projects such as the National Foreign Language Center, University of Maryland, United States, Japan International Cooperation Agency, United States Agency for International Development, Ministry of Education, Science, Sports, and Culture of Japan, Knowledge Channel Incorporated, and BDO Foundation. He has also conducted over 100 workshops or seminars all over the Philippines. And abroad on writing for scholarly journals, business communication, teaching and learning, oral presentation, research, and professional writing, and has delivered plenary talks at many local and international conferences. He served as judge in various research competitions as well. As a writer and researcher, he has already published 18 textbooks that cover business correspondence, grammar, academic reading and writing, technical writing, and speech communication, and practical research. He has also authored more than 40 scholarly work and research articles, many of which were published in top journals in education and applied linguistics. He has presented papers in prestigious international conferences in the USA, Singapore, Japan, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Macau, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Cambodia. He also served as a reviewer for over 30 Scopus and ISI journals and served editor-in-chief and editorial board advisory of various academic journals. Some of his latest textbooks include Practical Research 1 and 2, Academic Reading and Writing for Senior High School, English for Academic and Professional Purposes, and Purposive Communication in the 21st Century. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our respected and noteworthy resource person, the Dean of the College of Education, Arts and Sciences of the National University, Dr. Jessie Saraza Barot.
Good afternoon po. Thank you, sir, for that introduction. Ngayon lang ako naka-experience na na-introduce na talagang may PowerPoint. Feeling ko tatanggap ako ng award dun sa introduction na yun. So maraming salamat, sir. No? I can feel your enthusiasm in your introduction. At maraming salamat din kay Director George, no, for taking time to make a very inspiring opening remarks. No, I was si Director at least na contextualize niya yung talagang the need to do trainings like this, and the need to adapt to a new environment, and the things that CHED are currently doing, no, to address the problems. So good afternoon also to our participants from different private HEIs in Region 8, and most probably meron din yung mga taga SUC. This is not the first time that I do lectures, webinar for Region 8. I had the first 2 lectures 4 weeks ago yata yun, no? On a similar topic. And maganda yung trust na ginawa ng CHED na yung all the things na ginagawa or gagawin ng SUCs ay makaskade din sa mga private HEI. So that's why I am here now in front of you to share some of the insights on how we can adapt to this new normal. currently we are challenged by the situation talaga, no? At lahat naman tayo ay naka-experience, and I can very much relate to the private HEIs because National University is also a private institution owned by the C family, no? So more or less yung mga problema na na-experience ng private HEI sa Region 8, almost the same problems that we are experiencing in Manila. So the question now is, did we succumb to it? Tayo ba ay sumuko? Natalo na ba tayo? O nagtagumpay tayo? O ongoing pa rin ba? So malamang andun tayo sa ongoing pa rin yung laban, no? Dito sa sitwasyon na to. And that's why yung CHED nga nag-issue siya ng ewan ko kung na-issue na to, pero meron ng draft nung sa flexible learning, no? At doon sa draft na yon, doon sa document na yon, they explained yung flexible learning, and nandun din nabanggit yung learning continuity plan, no? So that's why I am here now to share with you some of the things that you can do in preparing your respective learning continuity plan. But of course, kailangan we have to see this holistically, no? Yung paggagawa ng learning continuity plan, hindi yung gagawa agad kayo, may format agad, pero hindi natin naiintindihan yung mga nangyayari sa paligid. So that's why my talking points for this afternoon's webinar is I'll be talking about, of course, what flexible learning is. I'll be sharing with you also some of the challenges that we experience and the solutions, and then slowly we will shift to the how-tos of preparing the learning continuity plan. So let me share with you my PowerPoint now. Okay, so that's why I titled this lecture, Learning Continuity in Higher Education in a Flexible Learning Environment. Because kailangan talaga yung gagawin nating learning continuity plan flexible enough para ma-address yung different realities ng ating mga teacher, different realities ng ating mga estudyante, at different realities ng ating mga schools, whether it's an SUC or a private higher education institution. So as I've mentioned a while back, I'll be briefly explaining to you what flexible learning is. May ipepresent po ako na quadrant dyan so that you would really see the full picture of it. And then the challenges that we are experiencing, no, because of this new normal. I'll give you some urgent solutions and long-term solutions for the problems and challenges that we are experiencing. And then I will be sharing with you some techniques on how you will be preparing your learning continuity plan. Because, you know, learning continuity plan will be used as your basis for all the things that you will be doing in your respective schools. So let's start first with flexible learning. You know that when we say flexible learning, it talks about flexibility when it comes to time. So yung bata, pwedeng gawin yung activity real time, pwede rin naman na doon sa kung saan mas free siya, no? Free yung time niya to do the teaching and to do the learning process, no? So ang tawag doon ay asynchronous learning. Dapat flexible din ang context, meaning kahit nasa remote siya, kahit nasa face-to-face, kahit nasa probinsya siya, or kahit halimbawa nasa dorm siya, ay pwede niyang magamit o pwede niyang ma-receive yung the same quality na nare-receive nung sa face-to-face learning. And then of course, yung the flexibility when it comes to mode, no? Yun na yung online, tapos offline, tapos yung online, meron pa yung synchronous at saka asynchronous. So let me show you to better understand this one. Let me show you this quadrant. I personally develop this quadrant para mas malawak yung tingin natin sa flexible learning. Ano po? So if you will notice, dito sa left side, andito yung offline mode. So non-internet based yan. And then on the right side, we have the online mode. And then on the top part, you have the remote learning or distance learning. And then down below, you have the face-to-face. So therefore, given these nuances, we have 4 contexts. No? So yung Q1, yan yung face-to-face na offline. Siyempre, pag sinabing face-to-face offline, walang masyadong nire-require na technology dyan. Kasi halimbawa, si teacher, si student, nandun sa classroom, mag-lecture doon, nagagawa ng activities. So, very minimal. No? But of course, you can still integrate technology there. Hindi man ibig sabihin na wala ng technology yon. Like PowerPoint is technology. Minimal nga lang yung requirement na technology. And of course, it's not internet-based because it's face-to-face, sa school ginagawa. And even the assessments that you do, assessment activities for the students, sa school din ginagawa. At may pailan-ilan na mga assignment. And of course, if it's face-to-face, it's teacher-fronted. So the teacher is there to facilitate the teaching and learning process. Now, shifting to quadrant 2, ito ay yung remote at the same time offline. Actually, sa lahat ng mga context, palagay ko isa to sa pinakamahirap. No? Isa siya sa pinakamahirap kasi talagang independently yung estudyante yung magpa-process. No? Siya yung boss ng sarili niyang learning. That's why sa Q2, it's really self-directed learning. So si estudyante ang basically bahala, no? Doon sa kanyang gagawin in relation to the subject that he is taking. And since it's offline and remote, low technology then, and there's no internet required for this context. And since it's remote learning, syempre sa bahay yung konteksto niyan, and even the assessment activities are done at home. Okay, so that is Q2. Now, for Q3, that is online mode. So pag sinabing online mode, so both Q3 and Q4, kailangan yan ng internet. So, yun namang sa technology, syempre dahil online yan, mas mataas ang requirement na technology dyan. So bukod sa PowerPoint, may mga video pa, audiovisual, multimedia technology, may mga social media pa dyan. So talagang very sophisticated yung technology na kailangan dun sa Q3 and Q4. The difference between the two is that sa Q3, which is face-to-face online, pwede rin kasi mangyari yon, no? Na nandun kayo sa classroom, pero at the same time, you are asking your students to do some online activity. So meron pa rin face-to-face online na tinatawag. And since it's face-to-face, it's school-based, and even the assessment activities, that's school-based. And then, of course, all the teaching and learning process is facilitated by the teacher. Unlike in Q4, it's since it's remote learning, although it's online, it would be self-directed. No? So estudyante din. So estudyante din talaga yung basically nagko-control or nagmamanage ng kanyang sariling learning. The difference between Q2 and Q4, mas may chance na mag-intervene si teacher sa Q4 kasi nga this is online. Unlike Q2, talagang wala kayong halos interaction ni teacher. So very, very minimal. Baka sa text lang yan, o sa tawag lang, umubra yung interaction between the student and the teacher. But in Q4, although it's remote, may mataas pa rin ang possibility na may interaction between the teacher and the students. That's why I was telling of all this personally, if I will be asked, ang pinakamahirap talaga dito ay yung Q2. So I am sharing this for context to you so that you'd be able to prepare, no? Titingnan nyo po lahat kasi to. When you come up with your learning continuity plan, dapat lahat ng quadrant Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, lahat po yan dapat meron kayong contingency plan, no? Or continuity plan. Para kung ano man ang bumungad na context ng estudyante, at least you are prepared and you have some strategies and approaches that you can use to address this particular situations. Now, that is for the overview and features of different quadrants of flexible learning. Now, let's go to assessment. Ito yung talagang very major, it's a major concern, no? When it comes to flexible learning, especially nga yung Q2, matinding ano yan, matinding issue to. Kasi, paano mangyayari ang learning kung walang assessment? Remember, to measure whether you are successful in delivering instruction or delivering learning to your students, you have to measure it, and you can only measure it through assessment. So that's why it's very, very critical na sa lahat po, whatever the context is of the student, whether it's Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4, you have to come up with a list of assessment activities appropriate for each context. For example, yung Q1, di syempre school-based assessment yan. Wala namang masyadong problema dyan kasi face-to-face naman ang context nito. You can do paper and pencil exercises. You can use portfolio, by the way. One of my most favorite forms of assessment is portfolio. And when you say portfolio, you ask your students to compile all of their work, no? Ko-compile nila yan, whether conventional, yung clear book or folder, or electronic portfolio or e-portfolio. Ako, in my case, I ask my students to come up with electronic portfolio, and then they publish it either in Facebook or on YouTube, no? Pag mga speaking performances. So you can do portfolio assessment in Q1. Of course, it's offline-based task, meaning yun ng printed, no? Yung mga, at saka yung face-to-face, yung mga tasks or activities na binibigay natin sa estudyante. Lahat naman yan from Q1, Q2, 3, and 4, lahat yan ay collaborative and interactive. Nag-iiba-iba lang ang nature ng pagiging collaborative at interactive. Q1, hands-on lab activity. So halimbawa, yun sa dentistry, magbubunot ng ngipin, o yung mag-check ka ng mga pasyente mo, diba, sa mga allied health. O kaya yung sa mga physics, chemistry, you have laboratory activity. So nagagawa yan sa Q1. Now for Q2, of course, that's home-based assessment kasi it's an offline mode eh. At the same time, it's remote. So an example of home-based assessment, halimbawa sa HRM, pwedeng mamili siya ng, halimbawa sa cooking, mamimili siya ng ingredients, tapos sa sarili niyang kusina gagawin yung pagluluto. We call that kitchen lab, no? Yan po ang konsepto ng kitchen lab. But there are also other home-based assessment that you can do. Like you can ask the students to record or come up with a tutorial video, or pwede namang katulong niya yung kanyang relatives or family members, no, to do certain activities. So lahat po ay ginagawa sa home, no? And since that is offline, of course, it's paper and pencil. So kaya may mga worksheets, halimbawa tayong ibibigay, printed worksheets for the students. So applicable also si portfolio, it's collaborative and interactive. But now it's home-based lab activity then. So similar to the thing that I've mentioned, the kitchen lab, no? At kung pwede rin din silang yung mga sa chemistry, mga simpleng experiment, di pwede rin naman. Kaya lang you should have very good and clear guidelines, no? Para naman sa safety ng mga estudyante. For the Q3, it's face-to-face online. Dahil siya face-to-face, it's still school-based assessment. Actually, karamihan ng mga universities, nung wala pa yung pandemic, ginagawa na tong Q3. if you're familiar with the concept of blended learning, meaning yung certain activities ginagawa sa school and then other activities naman ginagawa online. So yung context na yon, which is very common to HEIs prior to pandemic, nandun sa Q3. Ngayon, kaya lang ngayon na-expand siya, no? Napasama na si Q4 at saka si Q2. Okay? When it comes to Q3, you can do some hands-on activity. At the same time, you can have virtual laboratory activity. But in Q4, wala talaga dyang hands-on. No? It's basically more of virtual activity. If I may share with you some popular virtual lab platforms, yung pong mga nasa sciences dyan, no? You can try, pag sa physics, you can try yung PhET interactive. How do you spell that? PHET. So PHET interactive, PhET interactive. That's for physics, and I think it's more of physics. And then the other one is Labster naman. Yung LAB, yung spelling ng lab. So Labster, no? At saka yung meron pang isa Prixilab yata, but Labster is the more popular one. Ito naman, kinakopy nito yung mga laboratory, no, when it comes to sciences. Pag naman sa PE, you can try yung coach's eye, no? Coach, like yung coach ng basketball. And then apostrophe S, coach's eye, no? So yan naman po, pwede nyo gamitin kapag PE. So anyway, yung you can ask your teachers, yung mga nagsispecialize sa kada subject area, to look for possible virtual laboratories and simulation apps, no? Kasi kung hindi man magawa hands-on, at least merong gagamitin na mga virtual apps and simulation apps. Okay? So those are the things, those are the assessment activities that you can do, no, in flexible learning. And of course, we assume already that you have already mastered outcomes-based, yung mga principle ng outcomes-based pedagogy, and you just have to integrate yung mga assessment activities with your target learning outcomes. Now, let me shift now to the issues and challenges that we experience, whether you are from private higher education institution or whether you are from state colleges and universities. Okay, so I divided this into 4. The first one is on infrastructure. So one major problem that we have in the Philippines is there is no or poor internet connection. And this is not only katulad po ng na-experience natin ngayon. I'm pretty sure may mga ilang parts dyan sa Region 8 at nabanggit nga sa akin ni Doc Myla, mukhang meron ng bagyo, di lalo nang na-interrupt yung niyan, yung internet connection. No? So the good thing is meron tayong Facebook at saka yung sa YouTube so that you can still review and watch this webinar. But you know, it's a common problem here in the Philippines, not only at the institutional level but also at national level. Kasi yung Philippines, meron kang ang internet connection, sobrang bagal naman. No? In fact, in one international ranking of internet service in the world, ang Philippines ay isa sa kulelat. No? I think nasa rank siya na 129, if I'm not mistaken, out of 140 plus countries. Isa tayo sa may pinakamahina dito sa Southeast Asian region. So internet connection pa lang, talagang malaki ng problema dito sa Philippines. Hindi katulad sa ibang bansa like Singapore, no, napakadali nilang mag-implement ng online learning because they have very strong internet connection. Tapos yung geography nila, hindi rin ganun ka-complicated, hindi katulad ng Philippines. So that's the number one problem that we have right now. No? Talagang na-challenge tayo dyan. And then also, yung limited infrastructure. Minsan, may mga schools na walang official learning management system. In our case kami, ginagamit namin MS Teams, Microsoft, no? Because we are a Microsoft school. Yung iba naman ginagamit Moodle, yung iba Blackboard, yung iba ano pa ba, Google Classroom. So iba-iba ang mga infrastructure. Meron naman dyan mga free pwedeng gamitin. So if you don't have an LMS and you feel that you have limited budget for it, then you can explore yung mga free, yung ang alam kong Google Classroom yata yan. Free, nag-offer sila ng free. Ewan ko ngayon kung nag-lapse na yon. So you can explore that one. But that one is a big problem to some schools, especially in basic education. At least in higher education, medyo hindi masyadong problema yan, no? Pero sa basic education, ay naku, talaga malaking problema yan. Minsan naman, outdated ang system. For example, sige, ang school ay merong learning management system. Pero yung system naman nung nasa laptop, nung mga estudyante at na mga teacher, outdated. So nagkakaroon ng mismatch yung platform at saka yung outdated system ng laptop or nung tab ng mga estudyante at teacher. So that's another problem. No? Also, yung lack of equipment like headset, speaker, o halimbawa, multimedia ang gagamitin, ang inyong approach, at saka mga tools and resources. Kailangan ng headset, kailangan ng speaker, kailangan ng mga advanced na mga tools pa. Pag ang inyong estudyante medyo nasa laylayan ng society, nasa lower bracket ng socio-economic class, baka mahirapan dito sa part na to, no? And same thing, yung lack of resources naman. Some schools do not have remote access for their laboratory. So malaking challenge yan sa mga estudyante, not only for the students, but also for the teachers. So as much as possible, if we can make our library, learning resources available remotely for our students and teachers, that would be highly encouraged among private HEIs. Another one is the laboratory material. Minsan, yung mga chemical, syempre, makakabili ba naman ng mga estudyante ng mga chemicals na yan for experiment, no? Minsan, syempre, hindi naman. So that's a big problem also when it comes to particularly remote learning in online mode. Another one is cost. Sinasabi ng mga estudyante, syempre makakain nyo ng data, gastos sila ng 1,000, 2,000 a month sa dinami-dami. Biruin mo kung may online class ka, tapos meron kang 6 na subjects o 8 subjects, nagmi-meet kayo 3 hours in a week, ubus na ubus talaga lahat yan ng ubus na ubus talaga lahat yan yung data mo kahit mag-plan ka pa. Yun kasing halimbawa yung MS Teams o itong Zoom na lang, kumakain niya ng mga nasa 600 to 800 na 800 MB in a 3-hour session. So biruin mo yun. Kung meron kang 6 na subject, tapos puro 3-hour session, di ubus na ubus lahat yung mo dyan, yung yung data mo dyan. So those are the things that you may experience from an infrastructure perspective. When it comes to procedural elements, the number one problem is the mismatch between the nature of the course and the online learning delivery. Example nga dyan, binigay ko kanina yung PE. Halimbawa, the subject is team sports. Tapos ang topic mo ay about basketball or volleyball. Hindi naman pwedeng virtual lang yun, di ba? Dapat talaga pinapractice nila yun. So that's a big problem, no? Yung mismatch ng, tsaka yung talagang kailangan ng in-person na mga clinical experiment. So malaking problema yan. Also yung complex logistics, lalo na nung nagsisimula pa tong pandemic. Dahil hindi handa ang lahat, hindi nakapagawa ng guidelines, ba? So, hindi rin nila alam kung paano gagawin. Akala nila ganun lang kasimple. Feeling ng iba, handang-handa na sila dahil nagbe-blended learning sila. Yung pala, nung talagang nasubukan sila nitong pandemic, nakita nila na very complicated pala, hindi pala pwedeng ganun lang kadali yun. No? It's a systemic thing. No? So kailangan lahat yan ay tinitingnan mo para ma-execute yung mga logistics niyan kasi it's a very complex logistics nga. So that's another problem with flexible learning kasi kung may 4 kang context, 4 na ano yun, 4 na logistics yun. Sometimes naman unclear instructions. This is from the school admin to the academic community. Minsan naman, micro-context from the teachers to the students. So isa pa yan kasi nga hindi nila napaghandaan. Tapos yung syllabus nila is for face-to-face eh. Doon ginawa yun eh. Hindi naman yan ginawa for remote learning. So kailangan ng konting adjustment din dyan. Also, since hindi rin na-adjust yung mga content ng syllabus, nagkaroon tuloy ng sangkatutak na activities yung mga estudyante, at least from their perception, kahit sinusunod lang naman yung nasa syllabus. Why? Because the students, related na rin dun sa kanilang siguro behavior and attitude, no? May ano yan eh, pag hindi mo binigyan ng deadline, hindi gagawin, sa bandang huli lang gagawin. So feeling nila, pag nagsabay-sabay lahat yan sa end of term, tapusin yung mga activities, feeling nila overload sila ng activities. Yun, dahil hindi lang naman pala na-manage, no? Yung mga activities. And same thing with the teacher, it has an impact on the teachers. So if the students will finish all of the activities at the end of the term or at the end of the semester, there will be bulk of outputs that will be checked by the teacher. Sabay-sabay yan. So, napakahirap din sa overload din no, on the part of the teachers when it comes to checking the output of the students. Now, there are also human factors. This is the third aspect. No? Sa human factors naman, please take note po itong mga binabanggit ko dahil ito rin ang kailangan nating ma-address pag gumawa po tayo ng learning continuity plan. Okay, so the third factor is human factor. And one thing that's very obvious there is the lack of technological skills of both the teachers and the students. Yung students, medyo madali-dali yan turuan kasi mga digital natives yan. No? Kaya lang may mga teachers na nasanay ng talagang walang ginagamit na ibang technology, kundi PowerPoint lang. Minsan nga wala pang PowerPoint. So matinding paghahabol yung gagawin ng mga teachers no para maka-adjust sa bagong learning environment which is flexible learning. Actually, sa amin naka-experience nung first few meetings yung program chair ko, yung department head ko talagang chinututor ng one-on-one yung isa naming senior faculty no para lang maka-adjust doon sa bagong context. The good thing is natututo naman no although medyo yung iba mabagal, yung iba mabilis naman kahit naman sino ganun may kanya-kanya ng bilis yan doon lang medyo nagkakatalo no sa bilis tung paano makakapag-adjust. Another one is the poor time management skills, particularly of the students. Nabanggit ko nga kanina, di ba? Yung nagde-delay sila, delay. Tapos gagawin lang nila kapag patapos na. Similarly, the students and teachers' attitude toward online learning is also an issue. Meron dyan mga students and teachers who believe that they will not learn, no? Sasabihin ng mga estudyante, hindi man kami natututo sa online sa online learning platform. Pero actually, matututo naman Ano lang, hindi pa lang sanay. No? Hindi pa lang sanay yung mga, but eventually, masasanay din yung mga estudyante at masasanay din yung mga teachers. But you know, yung attitude is very crucial. No? Very, very crucial sa ganitong sitwasyon. Kapag hindi sila open at napakarami ng hundreds of research na ang nagsasabi nito, na pag wala kang proper disposition on the use of online learning, magko-collapse ang lahat. Talagang magko-collapse siya. No? Maaring andyan lahat ng infrastructure, pero technically, essentially, wala talagang nangyayari masyadong learning because the problem is the attitude of the students and the teachers. And related to that one is, since negative nga yung kanilang attitude toward online learning, naapektuhan din yung kanilang level of engagement. Sometimes naman, this is technical. Halimbawa, yung platform, may mga platform kasi na Halimbawa, kasi I did na rin as a webinar, no, sa Google Meet, at mas less ang pagiging interactive niya kumpara sa Zoom. Katuwa nga, at least tayo ang nagamit natin ay Zoom. It's actually more interactive compared to Google Meet. So sometimes hindi lang naman sa perspective ng estudyante ang problema. Minsan yung platform. That's why you really have to choose the best platform, no? Doon sa inyong instructional delivery. And the last aspect, no, that comes to challenges and limitations, environmental factors naman. The first one is online distractions, kasi minsan the students naka-open ang, habang nag-online class ka, naka-open ang Facebook, naka-open ang Instagram, naka-open ang TikTok. So pag may mag-pop up diyan na mga messages or pictures and videos, talagang madidistract na yung estudyante. Minsan naman, home naman ang distractors. To. Yung mga kapatid mo nagtatakbuhan sa paligid, yung parents mo inuutusan ka palagi, wala kang magandang environment, no, for learning dahil sobrang liit. Halimbawa, nasa squatter ka lang, tapos dikit-dikit kayo doon, paano naman magkakaroon ng conducive learning environment? So the distractions can be both online and can be both and can also be home related. Okay, so these are some of the major challenges and limitations that we currently experience when it comes to flexible learning, particularly doon sa online learning. But of course, we should not fret about it because there are solutions naman. There are some possible solutions for it, and these solutions that I'll be presenting to you, no, you can integrate them into the learning continuity plan that you will be preparing. So hinati ko rin ito sa 4 para, although nag-overlap, para at least ma-hit natin lahat ng mga challenges and issues that we are confronting. Okay, the first one is you have to have a general approach first to transition. Dito nabulaga yung iba. Hindi ito nagawa ng iba, but it's not yet too late. No? Hindi pa ito huli. So the very first thing that you have to do, bali 5 steps po ito, very simple. First is you have to study your school context and you have to gather relevant information that will help you implement and design flexible learning. So ano-ano yung kailangan yung alamin? You have to understand, no? Magpa-survey kayo sa inyong teachers, magpa-survey kayo sa inyong mga estudyante, at pwede namang online survey din lang yan, no? Kung hindi naman sila ma-reach, pwede namang ipa-mail nyo kung if you want to spend money for snail mail, pwede rin naman yun. Oh. So, but desirably, gamitin nyo po yung power ng email ninyo, gamitin nyo yung social media, pwede yung gawin. Mas accessible actually, social media eh. Pag nagpaganito po kayo, pag nagpa-survey, lalo na tapos na yung class. No? So, alamin nyo yung, ano yung realities of the teacher, ano yung mga gadget na meron sila, ano yung environment na meron sila sa bahay, ano yung mga resources na meron sila, ano yung kanilang technical, pedagogical, and content knowledge, no? Yung TPAC po, aalamin nyo lahat yan. No? Anything related to teachers and teaching context, ano yung mga materials na appropriate. When it comes to students and learning context naman, you can ask similarly, no? You can ask yung mga gadget na meron sila, may internet connection ba sila o wala? Ano yung mga resources nila? May budget ba sila dyan sa ganyan? Anong klaseng learning environment meron sila dun sa kanilang bahay? So lahat po to kailangan ding inaalam natin yung mga detalye yan. No? There are so many sample surveys that you can get from the internet para at least ma-consolidate nyo lahat ng mga details na yon to come up with a comprehensive survey. And together with that, together with the teachers and teaching context, students and learning context, you have to study also your school infrastructure. Ano ba yung mga resources na meron kayo? Meron ba kayong LMS? Ano ba yung LMS na yan? Appropriate ba yan sa realities ng inyong teachers and students? Library resources, may remote access ba kayo ng inyong library resources like textbooks, journals, and other reference materials. Yung inyong yung academic services like registrar, ano pa ba, guidance. So, preparado ba lahat sila? So, you have to also study school infrastructure and academic services. Now, after gathering all this key and relevant information, no, saka kayo magde-design at magde-develop ng inyong implementation plan. But it has to be done from a multi-stakeholder perspective. When we say multi-stakeholder perspective, you have to involve, no? Hindi pa pwede na yung admin lang ang gagawa ng mga guidelines, no, at saka ang mga protocol at ng implementation plan dahil hindi kita lahat ng admin yung nasa ilalim, yung mga detalye. Minsan yung mga detalye, sabi nga nila, the devil is in the details. So kaya kailangan meron ka ding representative ng estudyante, siguro yung mga student officers ninyo, meron kayong representative ng faculty, may representative kayo ng support staff, may representative din kayo ng academic services, at syempre yung admin. At kung pwede pa na kung may parents, no, representative ng na parents, that would be better para talagang mas maraming perspective ang mailagay ninyo dun sa inyong implementation plan. So what are the things that you have to do, that you have to put in your implementation? Actually, this implementation plan is very much linked to your learning continuity plan. No? So number one, yung mga training, no, for the teachers, particularly on technology, how they use technology, how they teach, and of course their content mastery or subject mastery. Hindi, itong tatlong to ay requirement po, no? Hindi pwede yung isa dyan, wala. Pag ang isa dyan, wala, naku, patay tayo niyan. No? So dapat talagang yung mga teacher ay well-trained and well-equipped when it comes to technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. Otherwise, makompromiso talaga yung mga bata. Another one is the implementation and teachers' guidelines. No? So bago kayo, lalo na magsa-start pa lang ang next school year, dapat bago pa lang mag-start, latag na yung mga guidelines sa teacher. Halimbawa, ilang beses nilang ini-meet ang mga estudyante in a week. Kung may 3 hours sila, 3 hours din ba? Or 1.5 hours lang yung kanilang online exposure with their students. Paano yung assessment? Paano yung pag-check? Paano yung criteria? Ano ang mga limitations ng mga activities? Ano yung etiquette na kailangan nilang i-practice? So napakarami at yung mga teachers mismo ang talagang makakapaglatag, nakakatulong sa pag-lay down ng mga guideline for them, no? Kasi sila yung naka-immerse talaga doon. So we have to have a very clear, no? Very clear teachers guidelines. And of course, if we have teachers guidelines, you also have to have your students guidelines. So sa student guidelines naman, katulad din nung sa teacher, dapat may online etiquette 'yan. Ano pa ba? Yung kanilang behavior, yung kanilang mga submissions, no? Yung sa mga deadlines, at saka yung ano pa ba, yung sa mga pag-complete ng mga activities. So lahat po yan dapat ay sa grading din, sa criteria, no, for grading. So kailangan malinaw din po ang mga guidelines na ilalagay natin. At it has to be, again, communicated and cascaded to the teachers prior to the start of the class. So preferably, siguro mga at least 2 weeks prior to the start of the class ay na-disseminate na mga guidelines. You have to think about the class scheduling also. So nabanggit ko nga kanina kung nag-meet sila ng every 2 times a week. So yung kalahati online, yung kalahati remote. So merong iba-iba kasing model on how you can schedule the class, no? Yung iba naman group A week na ganito, week 1, group B week 2. So iba-iba. So tingnan niyo na lang po kung ano yung mas match doon sa inyong mga estudyante. Student services, yung nabanggit ko kanina, yung guidance, very crucial because of this pandemic talaga naka-experience sila ng matinding anxiety and sometimes depression. So yung dapat immobilize, ilagay sa implementation plan yung support, psychosocial support for the students, yung registrar, yung library, yan yung mga yan yung mga student services, no? Use of flexible instructional materials. So, hindi ubra dito na online lang ang inyong materials. Hindi rin naman uubra na print lang. So, dapat, dahil flexible learning environment, you have to have flexible learning materials also. So, yung halimbawang pinagawa ng modules, you have 2 options here, by the way. First is, you can come up with your own module. No? Kaya lang, may disadvantage po yan. Although the advantage is highly contextualized to your students, no? Ang disadvantage na naka-contextualize doon sa inyong syllabus, ang disadvantage niyan, hindi lahat kayang makapagsulat ng learning materials or instructional materials. I have written 18 books and I've been an editor-in-chief of a big publishing company. At nakita ko even the experience one na tinatawag nilang experience, dami pa ring talpak dun sa sa instructional materials na ginawa. So that's a very big challenge, no, pag nagpagawa po kayo ng module. Although sabi ko nga kanina, that's highly contextualized. That's the advantage of it. You can also adopt available materials. The good thing is, andyan na yan. Kumbaga, i-adjust, kailangan pa rin ng skills, no? Kasi kailangan nyo pa rin maging creative kasi i-adjust yan dun sa flexible learning environment. The good thing about it is, andyan na. Hindi na siya kakain ng oras. Unlike gagawa pa, kakain talaga yan. Inaabot ako minsan ng mga 4 months, no, to finish one whole book. So medyo mahirap-hirap. Tapos itatry ko pa yan. Test ko pa yan sa classroom bago ko talaga ipapublish para evidence-based. Pero yun, that's the challenge nga pag nagawa kayo ng sarili nyong instructional materials. Pag nag-adapt naman, mahal, no? So may cost yan. Yun lang ang kailangan yung i-face siguro if you will adopt an available instructional materials. So try to come up with flexible learning materials. Now, I cannot discuss all things to you right now because it actually takes 1 whole week to discuss this. I did this in Bukidnon State University, no? Isang buong linggo talaga kaming training on creating flexible learning materials, tapos may mga workshop yon. So but those are the things that you have to take note on, whether you will be creating your own modules, or you will be adopting an existing instructional materials. Next is, of course, andyan na, na-design nyo na yung inyong plan, no? Na-develop nyo na yung inyong plan. Okay, so that's the time that you will execute na the plan. But of course, hindi naman lahat ng plano ay perfect. So be very prepared, no, for a contingency plan. So pag hindi umubra, try to think. Dapat mabilis, snappy ka, no? Mabilis ka mag-isip. Hindi umubra to, so gawa tayo ng plan B, plan C, plan D. Kaya dapat may nakatutok talagang tao dyan, no, sa implementation. Ang tawag dyan, typically, professionalized to, mga project managers yan. So sila talaga nakatutok dyan. No? O kaya yung mga monitoring and evaluation team. And speaking of monitoring, while you are implementing the learning contingency plan or the implementation plan, dapat ongoing din yung inyong pagmo-monitor and pag-evaluate, no? At it's very important that you have a team, a formal team, hindi yung ano lang, yung basta lang na nandyan na tatawagin lang parang ad hoc. You have to institutionalize this because as I see it, talagang there's no way but to move forward here. Talagang papunta na tayo sa online learning. Doon na talaga siya pupunta. So better come up with, establish an office that will really be in charge of the implementation of flexible learning and online learning. No? At nandun din sa team na yon yung monitoring and evaluation team. Yung pagsiset up po ng help desk, I don't know if you have come up with a help desk already, na ito ang email blast sa teachers, sa students. So lahat ng kanilang mga queries at lahat ng kanilang mga tanong bato dun sa help desk. Tapos itong si help desk naman ang magbabato doon sa different offices para centralize. Isa lang, hindi malito yung mga estudyante at hindi malito yung mga teachers. Yung iba kasi ang ginagawa na medyo magulo, medyo magulo na iba-ibang email, iba-ibang offices, isang katutakang office sa isang university o sa isang college, di ba? Unless the concern talaga is kailangang direkta, halimbawa sa dean or direkta dun sa teacher. But if it relates to yung mga problema na hindi naman ganun ka-micro at hindi ka-targeted, then you send it to help desk. No? Pwede yung number at the same time, yung mobile and landline, and then email as well. And then, of course, after that, syempre, pag nag-monitor ka at may nakita kang hindi effective, you have to revise your implementation strategies. So when you revise it, paikot yan, recursive. Balik ka uli sa 3, tapos monitor, revise, until ma-master nyo na yung implementation ng inyong learning continuity plan. Okay, so that's the general approach to how you will move from the conventional learning delivery to flexible learning delivery. Now, for the possible solutions that you can use to address the problems that I have mentioned a while back, isa-isahin po natin. Let's start with the infrastructure. And these solutions can also be the things that you can include in your learning continuity plan. So number one, you have to use flexible mode and flexible platforms. Yung iba parang allergic sa paggamit ng social media. Pero libo-libo na po, dahil area ko po yan sa research din eh. No? Libo-libo na ang nagsasabi ng social media is a very helpful platform, no, for online learning kasi diyan mas accessible ang mga estudyante, diyan mas komportable ang mga estudyante. Medyo dapat lang malinaw nga yung protocol nyo lang, no, sa paggamit ng social media for informal or for formal learning. So when you say flexible mode and platform, dapat meron kayong pang-online, both for asynchronous and synchronous. By the way, yung isa po ay synchronous, no? Real time at saka not real time. Dapat meron din kayong platforms kapag offline. Pwede nyo ring itry yung SMS, pwede nyo ring itry yung broadcast like radio and TV, no? Nagagawin daw po ng DepEd. So hanggat maaari, dahil flexible learning, dapat flexible din ang mode and flexible din ang platform. Lahat po meron kayong platform doon. Also, ayan, na-mention ko na po sa inyo yung paggamit ng social media, lalo na yung mga free. Like, I think Messenger, data free yan. No? Kaya lang, wala nga lang mga pictures at saka videos. Pero sa text, meron yan. No? So, at least may mga ganong platform. So, pwede yang i-avail ng mga estudyante at ng mga teachers. Employ also activities that do not require complex technology. Why? Because your technology should not be discriminating. Hindi dapat yang mag-discriminate ng mga bata na walang masyadong technology. Hindi dapat yan mag-discriminate ng hindi masyadong magaling sa technology. Hindi dapat yang mag-discriminate ng mga PWD. So kailangan i-consider po yung mga technology na gagamitin at dapat hindi siya discriminative. Dapat siya ay assistive. No? Dapat assistive ang mga pipiliin natin na technology. Again, it can be addressed if you will make your technology also flexible. So yung inyong available technology, it runs in a continuum from low to medium to high technology. No? So dapat lahat po yan ay available for your students and for your teachers. Pag ginawa niyo po yan, pipili na lang sa teacher kung saan siya at saka si student kung saan siya magmamatch. No? Also provide students with essential references. Hindi yung paghalimbawa, yung estudyante, yung teacher, magpapagawa kay estudyante, wala ngang internet connection, di ba? O sobrang bagal ng internet connection na virtually impossible for them to get a lot of references. Di pag nagbigay ka ng mga materials, magbigay ka na rin ng mga key references or key reading materials for your students. No? Para hindi naman nila sabihin na lahat na lang kami ang gumawa, wala nang ginawa si teacher. Yan kasi ang inaangal ng ilang bata. So kailangan mag-effort din. No? Mag-effort din si teachers to really help the students, at least in giving essential references to them for their tasks and activities. Also provide regular tutorials and resources for both the teachers and the students. So itong si school magbibigay ng mga like how to use the platform, 'di ba? Yung LMS, or how to assess students in an online environment. Ito namang si students, what are the websites na pwede nilang gamitin to further or to reinforce their learning. So both the teachers and the school kailangan regularly ay nag-send out ng mga tutorials and resources. And again, mas maganda, centralized, institutionalized, may isang office na gagawa nito. Typically, yung mga edutech, no? Yung mga education technology office ng mga college at saka university. So those are for the infrastructure. For the procedural elements, you can use alternative activities that can be done at home. Ito yung binabanggit ko kanina, the assessment has to be home-based. No? So pag pwedeng gawin sa bahay, gawin. Halimbawa, sa PE, ang PE nyo, ano ba? Mga rhythmic activities, di ba? So pwedeng paggawin nyo sila ng tutorial video. I-record nila, pagka-record nila, ipopost nila sa YouTube or ipopost nila sa Facebook. Di yun na yung kanilang actual performance. No? But again, may limitation yan. May mga bagay or activities that cannot really be done at home. But if it can be done at home, then please do it, no? Para hindi ma-sacrifice naman yung learning ng bata. You can use simulation apps, no? I've mentioned to you some simulation apps. For English, lalo na pag writing, meron tinatawag na online writing lab ng Purdue University, no? Yun naman po ay sa English. You can also reorganize your subjects in the curriculum if you are allowed to do so. Lalo na yung mga autonomous, no? I think you are because National University is autonomous, so we are also reorganizing our curriculum. Yung mga heavy sa laboratory ay ipupushback namin, pinushback namin ng isang term or isang semester, no? So maaring sa January pwede na yung face-to-face kahit konti. So doon namin inilagay yung mga heavy on laboratory. Tapos yung mga pwede namang i-move ng ng earlier, you can reorganize that. But please do not violate naman the principle of prerequisites, no? Kasi may mga subject na may mga prerequisites. Actually, this is the same thing. Kababasa ko lang yesterday yata, no? That this is the recommendation also of CHED main office, na i-push back, yung pwedeng i-push back like pati yung OJT, internship, yung may mga laboratories, yan, i-push back yan ng early 2021 na lang, no, para hindi din makompromiso yung learning ng bata. By the way, doon sa OJT, if it at all possible, the school can have a meeting with agreement with the companies, no? If the students can do remote or work from home OJT or internship, kung nagagawa nila yun sa kanilang employees, siguro pwede rin naman sa mga pwede rin naman dun sa mga estudyante for their practicum or internship. Provide clear guidelines to students and teachers, no, para hindi sila nalilito, at kasama nga, this is part of the implementation plan. Select only the essential topics and activities. Do not bombard students with so many topics, no. I-revise nyo po yung inyong syllabus ngayon, ginawa nyo sa face-to-face, maaring hindi yan masyadong applicable sa flexible learning. So revise, no, check the syllabus. Tapos yung mga non-essentials, yung mga nice to know topics, medyo i-embed nyo na lang sila dun sa mga essential topics, no, para mas focused ang inyong syllabus. Remember, what's important is quality over quantity. So try to revisit all your syllabi and then choose only those that are essential, no, both essential topics and essential activities. Mobilize your department and subject heads, no, to monitor the online classes. Dapat alam din nila. So syempre lalagay nyo rin sa guideline. What are the roles of the department heads and subject heads and deans and other administrators of the university? Kasi dapat dyan ay synchronized, no, ang galaw ng lahat. And this can be synchronized only if the things that the department heads should do are clear to them. So of course, you can do that in a form of a guideline. For human factors, the first thing that you have to do is you have to inform the academic community about the shift to flexible learning. Pag hindi po natin yan ginawa, we have to remember nagkakaroon there is misinformation. There is misinformation in the absence of information, no? So pag may vacuum of information, yan nagkakanda confused na yung buong academic community. So the first thing that you have to do is to orient, and I think this should be part of the learning continuity plan and implementation plan, no, for blended learning. Inform the whole academic community. And then when you come up with decisions, when you come up with guidelines, you have to involve particularly, no, the students and the teachers. Why? Because if the teachers and the students are involved in the decision-making process, they tend to own that decision also. Feeling nila kakapart kami sa decision. So kailangan magko-commit din sila dun sa nagawang decision, no? So nagkakaroon ng mas mataas na level of engagement and participation from the teachers and students when it comes to implementing the decisions and implementing the guidelines if they are involved in the decision making process and the planning stage of the implementation plan. You have to train both the students and the teachers in using the new platform. Hindi yan makukuha ng one-shot deal. It has to be a series of trainings for both the teachers and the students. Yung iba, palaging si teachers na lang ang tinetrain. But sometimes you have to give some trainings also to your students, no? Kung hindi man yan magawa prior to the start of the class, pag halimbawang nag-start na yung class, halimbawa during the first week, magpa-train din tayo sa ating mga estudyante para alam din nila yung gagawin nila doon sa bagong platform na ginagamit ng inyong college or university. It's very important also to have a timetable for all the topics and activities. yan naman ay ma-integrate kapag ni-revise ninyo yung syllabus, ano? Ito halimbawa, ganitong week, ito yung deliverables, ito yung topics, at tapos sasabihin ng bata, as much as possible, you have to stick to this timetable, no? Pero may mga instances syempre, no, pag may mga exigencies na hindi masusunod 'yon. So sabihin nyo din na kapag may exigency, flexible naman, but as much as possible, they have to stick to the timetable para na-address din naman yung sinasabing mga issue na overload sila ng trabaho, may poor time management skills sa mga estudyante. So that's very crucial for that one. Also ensure that all relevant offices are mobilized. Palagi kong nababanggit kanina, mobilize all the non-teaching offices and so support offices and the academic services, aside from the, of course, the admin and the teachers. When it comes to environmental factors, yung online distractions, you can embed this in the student guidelines, no? I-clarify nyo yung protocol na kapag halimbawa that they should be ready 5 minutes before the start of the online class, and that all of their social media platform not relevant for the online class should be logged out or should be turned off, no? So yung mga protocol na yan kailangang ay kinakascade at pinapaintindi sa mga estudyante, no? And also we have to guide the students in selecting the best time and area for learning at home. So kung pinili ng bata na online, o baka yung room niya, no, ay yun ang pinakamagandang lugar para sa conducive for learning, o baka sa tabi ng puno sa labas ng bahay nila, o kaya naman sa maliit na kubo na labas ng bahay nila. So dapat bago mag-start ang online class, malinaw na sa bata kung ano ang mga pipiliin niyang area for learning at home. So this may vary because it really depends. So siguro pag ginawa na lang ang guidelines on this one, ma-explore lang lahat ng context, no? Yung most conducive to the worst learning context at home para na-address lahat. Hindi pa wala pa yung problema, na-address na yung problema. Okay? So for future directions naman, kasi nga my prediction, fearless forecast for this one is that this will continue. No? Itong ganitong online and flexible learning will continue forward. So it's very important that all schools, although ina-address nyo yung mga urgent problems with urgent solutions, wag nyo rin kakaligtaan yung pang long term. At ano yung pang long term? Come up with a roadmap, let's say a 5-year roadmap, no, for flexible learning and ICT integration. Number 1, you have to have an institutional framework. In our case, ang ginawa naming framework, and I was the one one of the people who crafted the framework. It's a combination of the concept of TPAC, which is technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. So that's the perspective of the teacher. And then sa perspective naman ng estudyante, yung 21st century learning. So kinumbine ng dalawa, that's the institutional framework for ICT integration. So dahil meron ka ng framework, gawa ka na ng plan. So first year, ito dapat. Second year, ito na dapat ang milestone natin. Third year, fourth year, dapat fifth year, ganito na. Halimbawa, 80% na ng ating mga classes dinideliver online. Sa first year, siguro mga 30 or 40% lang. So come up with a very clear roadmap for ICT integration. So of course, when you come up with a roadmap, andyan yung mga milestone, sino assign people, at ano yung timeline. Also, as I've mentioned a while back, you establish an office that will oversee the implementation of your roadmap and the implementation of your implementation plan for flexible learning. You can also make, and part of that is you can make blended learning a requirement now for all classes. Kasi dati, Hindi natin pinapansin tong blended learning eh. Ngayong na-experience natin to, ngayon natin nakita na kailangan pala. So, pa-move forward, you have to make sure that blended learning is a required part of all the syllabi of all subjects. No? And then adapt, as I've mentioned a while back, adapt an inclusive approach to technology use. So dapat walang dinidiscriminate, no? Na kung sino man ang pipiliin nyo na technology. Kaya nga dapat it's in a continuum from low technology to high technology, dapat available yan for both the teachers and the students. Also, identify the main and supplemental platform. For example, yung main platform ninyo ay Microsoft. No? Tapos ang inyong supplemental platform ay pwedeng Facebook, pwede rin namang Zoom, no? Pwede namang marami yung inyong supplemental platform. But ideally, kung makakapili lang kayo ng isang main platform, better, para mas masanay din yung mga bata at masanay din yung mga teachers. And then you just supplement it with other platforms. And then, of course, provide continuous trainings for all your teachers and key stakeholders such as the student and academic services. So, hindi yan one-shot deal. Pagkatapos ng training ngayon, tapos na. Hindi po. That's not the reality when it comes to learning process. No? Kailangan talaga yan ay may monitoring, tapos training, retrain, retooling, ganon. So, dapat continuous ang effort when it comes to equipping our teachers, no? Especially when it comes to instructional delivery. Now, let me go now to the learning continuity plan. Although there is no specific format, maaring yung iba sa inyo would opt to come up with your own format. Yung iba naman will follow the format that will be given to them by CHED if there is any. What's important is you have to have the essential components there. No? At basically, when you come up with a learning continuity plan, pinakamadali dyan, syempre, title page. So, bigyan nyo lang ng title, tapos sinong office ang gumawa nun. And then, of course, you also have to indicate there the year, no? Yung coverage. Ano ba ang coverage niya? 1 whole year ba? 2 school years? Academic years? 3, 4, 5. And then after the title page, you have to have an executive summary. So when you write the executive summary, ano lang po yan, hindi yan masyadong mahaba, more or less nasa 300 words ang isang executive summary. And what are the things that you have to include in your executive summary? Of course, number 1 is the purpose. What is the purpose of your learning continuity plan? At ano yung inyong objective? No? So, sasabihin niyo po yan sa executive summary. And then, briefly, isummarize niyo yung context and rationale, no, dun sa executive summary. Parang ganito po yan. Tell them what you want to tell them. Yan yung executive summary. Tell them what it is. Yan po yung from context to action plan. And then tell them what you have told them. Yan naman po yung summary. So essentially, yung executive summary, at actually yung summary, you can term it conclusion if you want, no? Or pwede rin namang ano naman yan hindi naman siya requirement kung meron na kayong executive summary. But typically, ganun ang nagiging flow ng isang plan. In particular, itong learning continuity plan. Okay? So, balik po tayo dun sa executive summary. Sabihin niyo po yung purpose at saka yung objective ng learning continuity plan. Tapos, yung briefly explain the context and rationale. And then, isabihin nyo rin po yung mga content, yung mga makikita na mga key contents dun sa action plan, dun sa executive summary, and then some concluding paragraph. No? So more or less, it's just like 300 words. Now, for the context and participants, context and rationale, parang funnel shape po ang pag-organize ng context and rationale, no? So unang-una siguro isang paragraph. Sa first paragraph ay i-mention nyo muna yung general context. And what is the general context? Of course, itong COVID, itong pandemic, no, na tumama sa mundo. Tapos tumama din sa Philippines at naapektuhan din yung yung education sector. So yun po yung sigurong inyong first two paragraphs, no? After that, after that discussion, mag-shift na kayo, pwede kayong mag-shift dun sa provincial and regional context kung gusto nyo. Pero pwede rin namang hindi, no? Pero if you want na i-explain ano ba yung konteksto sa halimbawa sa Region 8, kasi iba naman ang konteksto sa mga region kaysa NCR. So siguro if you could also include some context on that one, no? Lalo na kapag may mga issue ng signal na dyan talaga nasa mga far-flung places and remote places. And then after that, you discuss in great details yung school context. That's very, very important. Dun sa school context, dyan yun na po ipapaliwanag kung ano yung mga issues na na-encounter ng school from the perspective ng teacher, from the perspective ng estudyante, when it comes to infrastructure. So yung katulad ng mga in-explain ko kanina, you talk about the challenges, no, and the limitations that the school is experiencing. So after mentioning the challenges, you can talk about na yung ano naman ang meron ng school, no, currently. Tapos pag na-mention na kung ano ang meron sa school, mapapakita nyo na kung ano na yung gap. Okay? So para lang ma-contextualize nyo yung ginawa nyong learning continuity plan, na yung inyong learning continuity plan, yung mga action plan dyan, ay talagang naka-anchor sa evidence, no? Naka-anchor sa realities, naka-anchor sa totoong na-experience at pwedeng ma-experience ng school. Kaya magiging strategic ngayon ang inyong action plan. Okay? Now, when it comes to action plan, ito po yan. No? So these are the things that you have to talk about when it comes to action plan. First is identify the key areas. Ano ba yung, depende po kung paano nyo i-arrange yung inyong key areas. Ito kasi yung inyong magiging guide sa pagsa-subdivide ng inyong mga action plan, no? So halimbawa, unang key area, teaching. May objectives kayo dyan, tapos doon sa objectives, merong specific strategies. No? Tapos punta kayo doon sa pangalawang key area, halimbawa naman student experience, may mga objectives kayo dyan, tapos strategies. Tapos academic services, ganun din, may objectives kayo dyan, strategies. Same thing with infrastructure, area 4 halimbawa, meron kayong objectives dyan, tapos meron kayong strategies. So if you will notice, yung inyong action plan, dapat malinaw ang key areas, at under ng bawat key area, you have the objectives. At bawat objective, dapat meron niyang strategies, no? At sa bawat strategy, sino yung personnel, anong required resources, ano ang target date, ano yung status, ano yung expected, ito yung status, ilalagay nyo na lang yan kapag halimbawang minomonitor na kayo or minomonitor nyo yung inyong plan. And then yung expected output, and then siguro sa bandang huli, you can put there the issues and concerns. So let me show you a sample table. So halimbawa, first key area ko is my first key area is on teaching. So one of my objectives, halimbawa may unang objective pa, no? Halimbawa yung unang objective ay sa technology. So ito naman, the second objective is on developing pedagogical skills of teachers. So under this objective, makita nyo naman, di ba, we have the activity 1 and then activity 2. So when you pag frenace nyo po yung activities, ano yan, nag-start kayo palagi dapat sa verb. Start po kayo sa verb, action verb. Tapos, sabihin nyo kung sino yung responsible personnel para siya yung accountable o siya yung magte-take ng lead doon. And then, what are the required resources? So, latag nyo din po lahat yan. And then, kailan gagawin yung activity? Pwedeng one-shot deal, pwede din siyang continuous. So, like, we can say from June to August kung talagang mahabaan yung strategy na yon. And then, pag nag-a-update na kayo, siguro quarterly or every month, doon yun na ilalagay yung status doon sa column na to. Whether it's achieved, tatlo po yung inyong options sa paglalagay ng status. Achieved, not achieved, or partially achieved. Okay? And as much as possible, pag sinabi niyo pong achieved yan, edi ilagay natin po yung details. Pag sinabi niyo partially achieved, ilalagay din po natin yung details. No? And then on the next column, expected output. Pero hindi naman lahat ng mga activities ay talagang may expected output. No? But mostly po, lalo na yung mga tangibles, meron talaga yung expected output. And then on the last column, lagay nyo na rin po dyan yung mga issues and concerns that you have experienced that posibleng prevented you from achieving a particular or completing a particular activity. Pwede rin namang ito'y naging successful ang inyong activity pero may mga concerns and issues pa rin na nag-pop up, ilagay nyo rin po para pag ginawa nyo yun sa susunod na implementation, matutroubleshoot nyo po yung mga problems na yon and it's more facilitated. So basically, that's how you will be, kung titingnan natin parang madali lang, no? Pero pag inisa-isa po natin tong pag inasa-isa kasi, halimbawa kung meron kayong 5 key areas, tapos bawat key area meron kayong tatlong objective, di 15 na agad yon. Tapos sa bawat objective, meron kayong at least 2 na activities or strategies. So medyo comprehensive po, the most comprehensive part of your learning continuity plan is the action plan. And it's further complicated if your learning continuity plan runs for several years. Diba? Yung sabi kong roadmap. Year 1, may set of details kayo dyan. Year 2, same format, pero medyo nag-iiba na ng konti, lalo na yung mga targets. No? So, of all the parts of the learning continuity plan, ito pong action plan area, ang most comprehensive and very, very critical. And then sa summary naman, you just summarize yung mga key points na nabanggit nyo doon sa context and then sa action plan. 1 paragraph would be okay. You can label it as a conclusion. But again, the summary or the conclusion may not be necessary. But you can also add in pala yung recommendations, no? You can make some recommendations in your learning continuity plan, and sa huling part na po yan inilalagay. Okay? And then of course the last part are the references. So references, you just follow the format of, let's say you can use APA kasi that's one of the most popular ones, no? So APA format in listing your references. So those are the things that you have to consider when you come up with your own learning continuity plan. So there, I think that's it. So let me summarize my lecture by pointing out that the current pandemic has really posed us so many problems, but it also gives us an opportunity to advance our ways of working when it comes to delivering instruction to our students. And we have to remember that a well-planned and well-executed learning continuity plan or implementation plan is really a prerequisite for us to survive this new normal in delivering in delivering learning and instruction to our students. So with that, I would like to end this webinar with a personally made quotation, no? The technology is useless without pedagogy and content. Yung iba masyadong engross sa technology, but it's just a tool. Tool lang po yan. It has to be coupled with pedagogy and content, and its usefulness lies not in the technology itself, but in our ability to use them optimally. So teachers cannot be replaced by technology. And the power of technology lies in our hands, so we better use them optimally. So with that, thank you so much. Doc Myla, what's our next phase?
Sir, parang mapapa-amen kami, sir, doon sa sinabi mong quote.
Salamat,
pero
ma'am.
totoo po yun, sir. Technology will be useless without our
It's
teachers.
useless, yes.
Opo.
Talagang ang dapat i-equip yung tao talaga.
Are there now questions? We will be entertaining questions first from the Zoom. You can raise your hand virtually. We have a button on your panel if you want to be recognized, or you can type away your questions and we will read it for you. So, Doc Jessie, wala pa. I'll just share na lang siguro 3 of my takeaways from your talk. One is we have to inform, or yet the whole community. It's really the whole community of the transition. Otherwise, there's going to be a vacuum of communication and miscommunication. And the second takeaway would be when you design activities for students, consider not only the best scenario, but also the worst scenario. Kasi usually yung iniisip talaga yung ideal.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And number 3 is the context and rational part of the LCP should show that the LCP is anchored on the reality that the community is experiencing. So yun po ang nakuha ko doon sa Siyempre marami, pero yun ang tumatak sa akin. So, are there, ito na sir, may isa ng question. Ito yung laging tinatanong.
Sige po.
Are the slides shown available for download? May isi-share po ninyo yung sir, material.
Send ko sa iyo, Doc Myla, yung
Opo.
yung PowerPoint, and then you can probably distribute it na lang sa sa participants, mama, no?
Okay. Later po, we will be pinning on the chat room the evaluation form where we will ask your active email addresses so we can send you also the materials. Okay, so yun, sunod-sunod po yun na tanong tungkol sa slides. And ito sir, hindi naman siya question, but coming from Ma'am Julita Calonge. Thank you, Dr. Barot, for your very comprehensive discussion of the topic. Well understood. We will now start working on our learning continuity plan.
Wow, thank you po. Nako, talagang yan ang next phase na. Yan ang next challenge natin on how to create the plan. And then, mas matinding challenge, ma'am, yung implementing the plan. Yun po.
Yes. So one at a time daw, sir, para hindi ma-overwhelm. Okay, please type away your comments and questions. So the Zoom, yun pa lang po so far. May we now hear from Dr. Iglesias from FB and YouTube. There are questions from the other platforms.
Okay, good afternoon. From YouTube Live, we are joined by participants as far as Zambales, Laguna, Imos, Bayogan City, and San Miguel, Manila. So far, there are no questions, but I just want to read here comments from our participants. We have one from Elizabeth Baltasar. It says, "Hello, I am interested to attend this webinar. I find this very helpful in the modality of educational implementations in the emergence of the pandemic." Then from Facebook Live from Esther N. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge. Yun po.
Okay, so either questions now, habol tayo habang nandito si Sir. Mahirap yung...
Actually, alam mo, Ma'am Myla, typically
Yes, sir.
talaga pag nagle-lecture ako, wala masyado nagtatanong.
Kasi
Anticipated na yung mga itatanong nila eh.
na-answer na dun sa discussion.
Na-anticipate ko na.
Okay.
Pero I'm sure may iba pa akong hindi na-cover kasi we only have 2 hours. Eh.
Okay. Baka sila na, sir, ang kukontak sa'yo. Opo. So marami lang po dito nagpapasalamat. Even inside Zoom, nakita ko dito ang comment ng aking dating boss, si Sir Pence. Hi, sir. Thank you a lot, Dr. Barro. Yes. Please type away, or is there anybody who's raising his or her hand for questions? Anybody who would want to be recognized? Talagang hinimay mo, sir, kaya wala silang maitanong.
Oo, wala. Baka ina-absorb pa, Ma'am, ang ano. Ang dami kasi information.
Ang daming gagawin daw, sir.
Ang daming gagawin. Actually, Ma'am, nako. Oo.
Survey pa lang po.
Oo.
Pero at least, sir, magsa-start na.
At least they can start na. They know how to initialize the activities.
Basically, wala sila talagang tanong na. Yun lang po talaga ang slides ang hinihingi. Then, lahat siya magsa-thank you. Ma'am Cathy, meron po ba sa FB at saka YouTube? Wala. Zoom chat? May bago? Okay. Ito, sir, meron siya. I agree from ECLC Tacloban, from Rafael Chua. I agree, Dr. Barr, we have anticipated all the questions in our heads. I was able to know in what area we still need to work on. Thank you so much for this. And okay, here's a question, sir. From MLGCL, from Emma Wagas. Sir, would you be able to share with us your thoughts about the possible disadvantages of adapting the modular type of learning? I mean the offline modular type of learning. What can you advise us to overcome those possible challenges?
Okay. So I assume that the modular approach na learning is the teachers would come up with a module and probably it's printed. Tama ba, ma'am?
Yes.
Oo. So kung printed yan, syempre ibibigay yan or ipipick up yan ng bata. No? But my main concern on the module is yung kanina nabanggit ko nga, it's very hard to prepare at not all can really write module effectively. At pag nangyari yon at tapos it will consume time din no, sa pagde-develop ng module. Pag minadali mo yan, hilaw na hilaw. ang magiging module. So that's one danger in coming up with a module, lalo na at meron na lang tayong natitira halimbawa na 1 month. No? Pero ang iba naman na ginagawa dyan is part by part. Halimbawa, yung first 4 weeks, itong part na to. Tapos yung sunod na module, pang 2 weeks. Yung sunod na module, pang 3 weeks. So, may mga ganun namang style na ginagawa. Kaya lang, ang logistics noon, di babalik yung estudyante to pick up the materials. Pero kung may email naman, di maganda naman. No? At least i-email na lang dun sa mga bata yung modules. One problem sa ganyan is pag halimbawang wala talagang totally, there is no internet connection, yung feedback po doon sa output ng mga bata. Kasi kapag halimbawang itong buong module ay pinagamit dun sa bata at hindi naman si estudyante nakaka-interact kay teacher, sino ang magbibigay ng feedback sa kanya kung tama yung ginagawa niya, lalo na ang kasama lang niya doon ay yung kapatid niya na maliit, na parents niya na hindi rin naman nakapag-aral. So paano yung feedback? So mako-compromise. So that's why to address this problem, there are 2 things that you can do to address this problem. Yung isa very technology-based. Yung isa naman hindi. Let's start muna with technology-based. Pag technology-based, magde-develop, actually I'm planning to come up with this kind of output also in the very near future. Magde-develop ng isang parang application or tool, no, na pwede siyang gamitin kahit offline. May mga ganun kasi hindi mo kinakailangan, di ba yung mga games na dina-download natin sa cellphone natin, kahit naman minsan walang internet connection, makakapaglaro ka doon ng games So para din ganun yung concept doon sa mga modules, no? Siya ay digitalized, pero flexible siya. May internet connection o walang internet connection, magagamit siya. So pag sumagot yung mga bata doon sa tool na yon, may immediate feedback kung tama o mali. Tapos kapag halimbawang na-perfect niya lahat yung mga activities, okay, proceed to the next subtopic. Ganun na. No? Tapos, yun. So at least, nag-iba lang ang feedback. Ang feedback, si gadget na, hindi na si teacher. But it can be done offline. Yun, medyo heavy on technology. Yung hindi masyadong heavy on technology, kung siya ay print, kailangan may kasama yung modules na number 1, yung answer key. No? Yung sa answer key na yon, kailangan hindi lang answer ang nakalagay, kundi may explanation dun sa mga sagot. Okay? So pag sinagutan ngayon ng bata yung inyong module o module 1, exercise 1, o titingnan niya, tama ba sagot ko? Pag nakita niya, ay mali pala, kaya mali kasi eto pala, kasi nakalagay na dun sa answer key yung paliwanag. So very crucial yung mga supplementary materials aside from the actual module. So pwedeng kasama nung actual module, of course, yung number 1 nga, yung answer key with corresponding explanation para may nagpaliwanag pa rin kung mali man yung sagot niya. And then second is pwede ring magbigay ng guide, no, parang a simple guide for students, no, on how to use the module and how to use the answer key along with the module. So, ganon. At least may mangyayaring feedback pa rin, even if it's just a printed module. But personally, I would really go for yung sa may gadget na pwedeng ma-manipulate siya offline. Hindi lang siya nakadepende sa may internet connection. That's the most flexible kasi, and that's the most interactive and real-time. Kumbaga, pati hindi makakapang-cheat yung bata, no, na titingnan ko nga yung sagot dito sa ano. So, yun. Tapos yung mga summative assessment na lang, siguro, schedule na lang yun. Kasi yung mga formative assessment, wala naman talagang masyadong percent yan sa grade ng bata or kung meron man, maliit lang ang percent. Pero yung summative na mga assessment, siguro doon pwedeng mag-schedule si teacher. So, kasi yung summative ang medyo mabigat na percent dun sa grade ng estudyante.
So sir, yung sa summative assessments, ito yung medyo kailangang synchronous. Yun po ba yun?
As much as possible, Ma'am Myla, oo. Pwede namang hindi, kung pinapayagan na siguro ang face-to-face, edi schedule na lang sila. Unti-unti, batch by batch. Tapos pwede rin naman na kung hindi pwede yon, edi mag-synchronous na lang. No?
May question din po dito sir on time from CSLRM from Ma'am Polita Palome. Would it be all right to prepare a plan for only 1 year or for the current school year? Kasi sir, kanina nabanggit niyo po 5-year plan. So ito yung tanong ni ma'am is it all right kung 1 year lang?
Pwede naman na 1 year lang kung hindi nyo nakikita ang sarili nyo in the next 5 years on that one. Pero ako, personally, I would prefer a 5-year plan. Kasi makikita nyo yung ultimate purpose ninyo, yung ultimate target ninyo and how you fare in achieving yung inyong ultimate target kung siya ay naka 5 years. Kasi minsan hindi talaga siya nakikita ng maayos sa unang taon eh. Yun ang pinaka-trial period eh. So, at yun ay based on my experience kasi we also do yung strategic plan no sa university. At ang ginagawa na lang, halimbawa, ito yung 5-year plan na ginawa, tapos itinitweak na lang or ina-adjust na lang yung mga susunod para at least contextualize pa rin. Pero siguro initially, syempre unahin na muna nila yung dibdibin muna nila yung year 1, no? Talagang paplanuhang mabuti yung year 1. Tapos kung may time pa, di ituloy na lang uli up to yung plan up to year 5.
Here's a comment, sir. We would like to thank Dr. Barot for presenting to us the very accessible format and template in preparing the learning continuity plan. And that's from SMCHLI from Melinda Boron. And then here's also another one from SJC from Liza. Thank you, Dr. Barot, for enlightening us and giving us a lot to work. Tapos may follow-up siya. It's a question now for Ched, and I'd like to call on our supervising education program specialist, Dr. Putilos, to answer for Ched. Si RD po ay nasa isang meeting, another meeting po. So, is Ched going to require us to create a flexible learning center or office?
Based on the actually it's there in the draft CMO, encouraging the HEI to have a project director or coordinator. So necessarily, it would be advisable for the HEI to have an office that would attend to flexible learning modality of the HEI.
Okay, thank you, sir. Another comment, this one is from the president of SPSPS, Sir Erwin Vincent Alcala. Thank you, Chair 08, for inviting Dr. Barot for the webinar. Very informative. So, are there, Ma'am Cathy, meron po ba from FB and YouTube?
Okay, from the YouTube Live and Facebook Live, wala po tayong mga tanong, but our participants would like to express their thanks to Dr. Barot. We have from Lizelle Lucin, from Lady Colleges through Jose Pepeto Isito. Then from ADFC, Miss Claire H. From Doreta Aninon and Maria Norma Ladrera. Then Miss Sheila Tabong and Dr. Concheta Marin, they said it's very informative. Thank you, sir. Then from Miss Mary Jane Sabiniano, very insightful, very useful, and very timely webinar. Thank you, sir. Yun po yung mga comments natin from the YouTube live. Mayroon pa po tayong pa-thank you from Jessa Chris Israel. Thank you so much, Dr. Barot, for that very informative talk. Hoping for more webinars with you. God bless po. Then also from SNCO Ormoc City, from Imelda Oman. Thank you, Dr. Barot.
Thank you, Ma'am Cathy. So, seeing from the Zoom room, wala nang tanong, but basically all thanking you, Dr. Barot, for your very comprehensive discussion on LCT.
Thank you din po. Hopefully, some of the things that I've shared makatulong po sa mga private HEI sa Region 8.
Wala na. Going once, twice. Wala nang hahabol. Okay,
Wala
so
nang hahabol.
wala nang hahabol.
Di bali, Ma'am Myla, meron naman akong may email. Pag nag-send ako nung PowerPoint, may email ako doon. So if in case may mga questions sila, they can just email me.
Okay, so thank you so much. So at this point, before we proceed to the next part, I just want to inform everyone from FB and YouTube, also Zoom, we will be pinning on the evaluation Google form or the link to the evaluation Google form. It will be posted on the chat room and it will serve as your attendance and basis for the issuance of the certificate. We also request everyone to fill it out immediately after the webinar because the Google form will only be up for a certain number of hours. So, kailangan po siyang i-fill out for your attendance. So, hopefully, very clear yung nyo doon, email addresses because that's how we're going or our way of contacting you for the materials from Dr. Barot and also for your certificate. So to conclude this webinar, I will be requesting again Dr. Pipilot to this is now to give our virtual certificate, virtual awarding of the certificate to Dr. Barot. Sir Gabs.
Please, I couldn't see the certificate on my screen. Okay. So we'll now award the Certificate of Appreciation. Republic of the Philippines, Office of the President, Commission on Higher Education, Regional Office 8, Athletic Road, Barangay 43B, Quarry District, Tacloban City, awards this Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Jesse S. Barut in recognition of his expertise and invaluable service as a source speaker on learning continuity of higher education in a flexible learning environment during the Schedule 8 webinar conducted via digital platform on July 17, 2020. Given the 17th day of July 2020 in Tacloban City, Leyte, Philippines. Signed, George M. Colorado, PhD, Seso 3, Director 4.
Thank you po. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so much, sir.
May photo op po kami sa'yo, sir. So, Neil, kung pwedeng lahat tayo nasa screen with Dr. Barot. Oh, photo op.
Photo.
Smile po.
Smile daw kahit nakamask.
Smile.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Second page. Okay. So again, sir, Sir Doc Jessie, thank you po.
Yes, ma'am.
Sa uulitin, sana ma-invite
Maraming
po
salamat din po. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Opo.
And to all the participants po.
God bless po at keep
God bless
safe.
po.
Opo.
I can leave na the chat room, ma'am. No?
Opo, sir. Thank you,
Sige
sir.
po. Okay po. Bye-bye to all.
Thank you so much.
Po. And then at this point, I'd like to request everyone to stay for some announcements from Dr. Pitilo. Sir.
Okay. This has something to do with the memorandum we sent to all HIEs in the region. Submission of the survey on flexible learning, which would be, the deadline would be July 2020. No, July 2020. So the memo was sent to you. You can submit the survey online. May link doon na nakalagay. And for HIEs with no internet, there's an attached PDF file. So actually, the easier way to reply to the survey is to download the PDF file, have it filled out, fill it up, and once filled up, you can submit your answers through the link provided in that memorandum. Again, this was sent to you to the official email addresses of the HIEs, HUCs, and private HIEs, as well as LUCs. I hope you were able to get that emailed communication.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to get feedback from the participants. Do you have access now to the evaluation form? Na-access niyo po? Pwedeng mag-thumbs up po kung okay, or kung may problema po, chat away lang kung hindi niyo po nakikita yung evaluation form in our chat room. Okay, so I see thumbs up, so thank you po. Again, the form will only be accessible for a certain number of hours, so you have to fill it out right after the webinar. We thank you all for responding to our invitation, and we hope to see you in other webinars. Thank you so much po. That's a wrap now. Good afternoon.
Download ko na.